Welcome Wargamers to another Mid-Sussex Wargames video. You're here with Kieran again, and today I'm just going to be talking very quickly about how I've gone about doing my mounted King of the Dead conversion, or rather how I'm planning on finishing it off. So, let's have a quick look at the actual model that you start with, which obviously is the King of the Dead. As you can see, there are no loose components to this model. It is one solid block of metal, which means that the first challenge is cutting through it. To get him mounted, you only need the top half of him, as well as a Rider of the Dead to put him onto. So what you do is, very carefully, you mark where you need to cut, you take a modelling saw and you go through it. One trick that you can sometimes use is to use a craft knife to gently score exactly where you need to go. You'll have a lot more control. You put the groove in, and then once you've done that, you just nice and steady and slowly saw on a level plane. You don't want to use too much pressure, and you want to make the saw do most of the work. Your focus should really just be on making sure that the blade's going exactly where you need it to be. You don't want it to slip. Once you've done that, you'll end up with two pieces of the King of the Dead. And when I first had these, I took the top bit, put it on... Sorry, we're skipping ahead a bit. I also took a Rider of the Dead that I'd previously painted, and I cut him in half, doing pretty much exactly the same thing, just starting at the waist and bisecting him. Once you've got that, you've effectively got the lower half that will become the King of the Dead, and this top space to put the top half of him on. First time that when I had my two pieces, I cut the King of the Dead just under the waist here, but I realised that he looked a little bit too unnatural. So went back to the saw again and effectively cut him into three pieces. So you've got the top section here, part of the waist bit with part of his robe still on, and then the bottom section of his cloak. The reason I did that was because the first time I'd been just a bit too conservative and I'd cut him across here, and next time I went all the way up to just the lower part of his rib cage there. Once you've got your King of the Dead into this sort of bit, just ignore that bit for now. Once you've got that section of the model, you can position him on your Rider of the Dead. Sorry, this is going to be a bit awkward. So that you've got a bit of room to adjust him. You can have him sitting upright. I've chosen to go from leaning forwards because I want him to look kind of like he's charging out of the boats onto the Pelennor. And the other bit, once you've done that, the next part of your conversion is pretty much about filling in the big gaps and smoothing over all the lines, and of course equipping him with a weapon. So, as far as filling in those gaps goes, you can see on the back there that I have got a scrap of his cloak, and that's part of the original bit that I've cut away. What I've done to that is I've actually cut into it a bit more. So you've got these big chunks from his middle section, and what I've done is I've just cut the backs of them off. I've sort of halved them if you like, and what that allows me to do is when I want him on here in this leaning forwards position, I've cut away a lot of the stuff that's blocking that, and it also means that instead of having to sculpt the entirety of his back section from scratch, which some people can do, you know, if you're handy or confident with green stuff, just go for it. I'm sure that will work out fine for you. But instead of having to do that, I can use the existing back of his cloak and just carry on those lines and just gently fill the bits in between with the green stuff. I've got another scrap of his cloak here, which is a lot thinner. Don't know if you can see that. And that again will just be put over most of this back section and let me finish off the back of it a lot more easily for me, because I'm just not as confident using green stuff from scratch. On top of that, I've got a shield from the Rider of the Dead. I'm probably going to hook that up onto his right shoulder somewhere. Possibly might even have it mounted on the horse. Just thought it would be cool to give him a shield. Again, there's no use for it in game, just purely doing it for the conversion. Over here, I have got a couple of swords from Riders of the Dead. That's the sword as it comes. That's the arm section with the blade that I've taken off. The reason I cut that blade off there was I was toying with putting it onto where the blade has actually broken on this King of the Dead. Where is his sword I've got to? Again, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but that there is his sword hand, which is quite blocky. It's covered by the cloak. It's not really ideal for this conversion, so what I thought I'd do is just get rid of that entirely, take a hand off or part of the wrist from here and slap it onto his side when the conversion's a bit more forward, a bit more far ahead. One of the things I'm currently debating actually is whether to give him a sword arm or to equip him with a spear or lance kind of thing. Originally I was just thinking go with the sword because that's what he's armed with in the film and it looks cool. And then when I was listening to the audiobooks, I realised that the last thing the King of the Dead does before he leaves us in the story is he actually breaks his spear over his knee. So I thought that was really cool. I really like the idea of that, and so maybe this guy is going to end up armed with a spear overall. Again, that's pretty much as far as I've got with it for now. If you've got any questions about how I've done things, or if want any sort of tips on where I've got to this stage, just feel free to ask. It's a pretty basic conversion, despite it looking maybe a bit more complex than it is. And if you want to do one of yourself, just give it a go. You only ever learn how to do new things by trying. Similar to me, I'm not very confident with green stuff. The only way I'm going to get more confident is by practicing. And yeah, hopefully this will look really cool when it's finished. I will keep you updated.